Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. I want to share for the next 13 minutes my experience with this basement crack repair kit. It's a HyperSeal kit from Source One Environmental. They have other brands. I got this from Amazon. They have Radon Seal foundation crack repair kit. That's more money. It's more well known. They're all the same. It comes with this little bottle for your water, and here is the main ingredient. It's hyperflex. This tells you what's in it. Gives you all the cautions. This stuff is basically like your great stuff. It's ends up being a closed cell foam. When it gets in the crack, it needs water to react. Now your great stuff needs water to react to it, takes it out of the air. The great stuff is compressed in a can, so it foams up when it comes out a lot better. This stuff foams when it reacts with the air. It comes with 2 tubes. I think they're 12 ounces, so you get a total of 24 ounces. The kit also comes with gloves, just like the other bigger name brand kit. There's your 4th glove. Comes with epoxy. It's a 2-part epoxy. It's probably the pricier part of the kit, but this epoxy is used to dam up the crack. After you put the ports on with the epoxy, it's 2-part. You mix equal parts together. This is kind of unique because it's a single bag with a divider in the middle as a clamp. And when you dispose of it, you just take that clamp off and try and mix them together for disposal. Here's a little bag with all your little goodies in it. It's got your spatula, a couple of mixing sticks, a couple of nozzles for your tubes. There's 2 of each. A whole bunch of ports with caps, and then a couple of hoses. You can use one hose for water and one for the urethane foam. The hoses are made to go on. My experience shows you got to be careful about how you put those hoses on because they can pop off if you're trying to force it in. The instructions here are really nice because they're written by somebody with English as a language. They don't have mistakes in here, and they're very clear on how to do it. Not sure it's going to work out this way, but they do tell you the proper way to get it done. Okay, so this is where my crack is. I've got a poured foundation, which I cut a hole through, and then we have cinder blocks abutted to it. Now they moved and allowed water in. Right here is where the water comes in, right there. So it's about 10 years old. Now there's cracks along the cinder blocks also. After 10 years of being up here in the north, the frost has moved things around a little bit. And I'm getting a little bit of water in from my eave troughs overflowing in a heavy rain, then a little bit from the snow. So you have to put this plastic down. Put the plastic down. Then directions say just take the wire brush. Knock off all the loose stuff. And I found, you'll see me later on at the end, but I found that the epoxy sticks really well. So you don't have to be real crazy about cleaning it too well with wire brush. So you just clean it all up. Mark your location for your ports, 8 inches apart with the tape. You got to come up with a mixing board. I've got an old piece of drywall. Cut the corner off the bags, and then pour out equal amounts of epoxy to mix it together. Now this is to mount your port. So I start out with just a little bit, what I thought I might need. It's easy enough to mix some more. Wasn't quite sure how much I really needed, so I just start out with just a little bit. Mixed it up. The port has 3 feet on it. So what I did is I put the epoxy on all 3 of the feet, and then I straddled my crack. So 2 feet were on one side, 1 foot was on the other side. And the epoxy is really liquidy, real runny. It was good enough to hold the ports in place. I had a few of them drop off. You can wait a little bit till it starts to cure too if you have an issue. But it seemed to work okay for me. Had to mix a little bit more. I do want to say there is another kit out there that uses carbon fiber cloth and an epoxy to hold it to the crack or the wall. I don't know how good that would work. This was recommended to me by a friend. Like I say, it's a closed cell foam when it's complete, and it'll block the water out. Check the instructions again on any details. You got to be careful not to block the port when you put this epoxy on. So you just put it on the feet, put them all up into place. I did start covering my crack a little bit where the water was. My gloves, I want to save them because I think I'm going to need them again, because you only have 2 pair and there's like 3 steps to this. So this is the first step of putting the port in place. Here we came back 90 minutes later. I went and did something else. Reusing my gloves because they weren't that bad. Mixing up more epoxy in a bigger glob. Now I'm going to cover the crack and just mix it, and it's real runny. Then you just take the spatula and you cover over the crack. You're not trying to fill the crack. So when you put it on, keep that in mind. Don't try to work it into the crack. You just want to cover the crack. Because you're actually making a dam. You're making a passage for the urethane to go through and the water to go through. You want to take special care to go around the ports, because I ended up having a couple of ports leak. And each time you use the epoxy, you need to wait the 90 minutes so you don't have a chance of blowing a port out. Now I was trying to do an experiment by doing it in a couple. I didn't really have a big leak. I had a wetness by these cracks, but I had the extra port, so I thought I'd try it. So now we go off and we wait for 90 minutes. We come back, it's time to put the water in the crack. So I have water in this, put a tube on it, and they tell you to start at the top and just try and get the water to come out the bottom. And you just go down each port at a time, and I did get water in each one, so that's a good thing. My dog's trying to help me out there. And I found a leaker, so I had to go back, mix some more epoxy. Lucky I saved some. I was thinking about keeping this, but you know, you keep it in the garage and then it'd be a mess all over the place, so I end up disposing what I don't need in the end. You see me mix it together, take the tab off. So I did what I thought was the right thing and got the ports all covered up with extra. I waited 90 more minutes, total of 4.5 hours of wait time. So this is not a real quick job. You could even spread it out over a couple of days. Now I take the first tube and you start at the bottom. You take the cap off the port above it. So you start on the bottom port, take the cap off, and you just keep moving it up, having 2 ports uncapped at a time. Always refer back to the direction if you have any questions. Now, they're 12-ounce tubes, and look, I only go a little bit, and I change the tube, so either it's all going in the backside of that cinder block that's against the wall, or it's going in the crack. I'm not sure. I never got it to come out the crack above like you're supposed to. They tell you it should come out that crack above. I took the cap off and nothing ever came out. I did get it to run down the wall, but that's because I still had a leaker. So I changed the tube about 1/3 of the way up, and then I keep on going. So the urethane must be going in somewhere. You know, it's quite a large space on the end of the cinder block if you know what they look like. So then I went and did the other ones, and then voila, we're done. We mix up the epoxy for disposal, and this is it. Now I quit here and I basically gave up for It was well over a week. Now here's my sample. I had one with water in it and one without. And you can see the dark one, the second one, that was without water. So definitely the water cures it. It can't get enough out of the air to make it react and foam. Now this is what it looks like. I just kind of dabbed it on there real quick. I didn't want to fill the crack with epoxy. I just wanted to cover it. There's where my little leaker was. So this is, I just left this for a week. No reason to upset it because I didn't care. Now, if you're doing it behind a wall, you can just knock the ports off and let it go like this, leave the epoxy in place. But if it's somewhere exposed, you're going to have to figure out how to get the epoxy off. They talk about grinding it off. You're just going to make a huge mess grinding it off with dust, and you need a dust mask. Now, I just took a chisel. I had a wide chisel and a narrow chisel. And that's my daughter's dog giving me a little advice there, keeping an eye on me. And it was quite warm today when I did this. But I just worked away at it. I'm going to come back later with some masonry. There's a product called Quick Wall that I like. It bonds really well to finished surface. It's fiberglass reinforced and it's waterproof. It's Quick Wall from Quikrete. It's a little pricey, but it seems to work really well. So I'll come back later and I'll put that Quick Wall over it instead of just using like some mason cement. So there's quite a bit of work here to get this stuff off. And I'm taking concrete off with it, part of the cinder block and part of the crack and stuff. So it's quite a bit of work. Now when I got it all off, this is what it looks like. You can still see some of the epoxy down in the crack. You can't really see any of the foam. There might be a few spots where you can see foam. Now right here is where the water was leaking, right in this area. I actually would have water running down the wall and it kind of flooded the basement, so that's what motivated me to do this repair. Like I say, this is about 12 years old actually, 10, 12 years old. Then I tried to do a couple of these cracks in the cinder blocks. Suppose ideally I could just drill a hole and try and fill these up with great stuff too. That's another idea with cinder blocks. Probably would be a good barrier. I don't know how well it would work. And then what do you do in the end? You got to clean everything up. So like I say, I'll come back and I'll put the Quick Wall on it. I want to thank you all for bearing with me for 13 minutes, and I hope this will help you when you do this project for yourself.